with the AI buzz. It's a really exciting time to be in the industry and to see where it goes. The workloads are getting larger. The density of the racks are getting larger. And I kind of think about just the evolution of mankind, where you see the heavy spike from the Industrial Revolution. How much of that are we going through now with this AI technology? I think it's really cool to see that impact the real estate side, but also impact the rest of the world in terms of how different companies operate, how they're streamlining their processes, and really how it all comes back to a data center. Michael Duderstadt, I'm the director with Cushman Wakefield on the brokerage side. A lot of what I do and my team does is real estate for data centers. Maybe 2-3 years ago, data center groups were more willing to buy land without a real established power story because there was confidence there that they could eventually get power. Now it's few and far between and almost impossible. Typically there's a lot more work, there's more capital that's required to get a power study done for preparing the site in terms of just general DD. A lot of groups on the data center side, buy side, want to see some sort of story there, right? They're not as willing to take a risk and just buy land or put it under contract and see what they can do with it. It's booming and buzzing right now, and everyone wants in the data center industry. So it's industrial sites, it's farmers, it's everyone that wants a piece of the pie, and they're just trying to figure out how they get into it left and right. It's going to be really interesting, and it already has been interesting within the last 6 months to a year to see a lot of larger private equity groups and capital groups starting to buy up more and more power plants and transmission type companies. How much is that going to keep scaling into larger and larger data centers? And is there going to be power to support this larger and larger data centers? And I think that brings it to a third point, actually, is how much is natural gas going to affect that? It's been out there for a while. And if you asked me earlier in my career if I was going to know this much about power, energy, and transmission and transformers, I would have never guessed that that's where I would be today. But there's a huge overlap because it's understanding the real estate and what you have from the real estate side. But the value, obviously, from the data center is being able to tell a story around power and being able to perform on that. Starting to transition from this idea of you're paying a price per acre versus a price per megawatt. The real value that you're paying for is the power. I think the big thing is if you have a large natural gas pipeline and you're able to pull enough gas off of that to generate power with an on-site generation plant, then you're able to power a site really anywhere that you have those natural gas lines, right? Assuming that there's enough natural gas. So it really opens the door to areas that you can look, not necessarily along those power lines. I'd say most groups that we work with still want that utility and that grid power because it's more reliable. They have relationships with the utility providers already, and in some instances, they have large power purchases agreements already in place. But in terms of the real estate side, it does open up the door, assuming that you're able to get that natural gas from the pipeline. And then the second piece of that, I think, is that the capital requirements to stand up a natural gas generation plant, right? There's a backlog of natural gas generators now because of the uptick in the market. And then just the capital expenditure to be able to not only build and operate that, but also having the wherewithal and the teams in place to be able to not only own and operate a data center, but also a natural gas plant. It's a huge factor when it comes to the overall decision process as we, from the selling side, go to pick a buyer.